Good morning. Now I've been discussing about the case study. Case study is the in-depth detailed examination. Case study is an in-depth detailed examination of a particular case within the real-world context. Case study is an in-depth detailed examination of a particular case within a real-world examination. For example, in case of medicinal studies or research, may focus on the individual patient or ailment, but in case of business or commercial studies, might cover particular firm's strategy or broader market. In case of medicinal studies, focus on individual patient and ailment, but in case of case studies of business or market, cover particular firm strategy or broader market. Similarly, in case of politics, uh, can range from the narrow happening in operation of a specific political campaign to an enormous undertaking like World War, or more often the policy analysis of real world problems affecting the multiple stakeholders. So, case study is the depth, detailed examination of particular case. I'm discussing about three examples. First example is studies in medicine. In the medicinal studies, it focus in individual patient, but in case of business, it covers particular firms or broader market. Also, in case of politics case study, can range from the narrow happening from time, like operation of specific campaign to encourage undertaking World War, First World War, Second World War, or more often the policy analysis of the real world problem affecting the stakeholders. The case study creation process, the research question to be studied is defined, informed by existing the literature and previous research. A researcher a researcher should clearly define the scope of the case, and they should multiple a list of evidence to be collected, as well as indefinitely nature of insight that they expect to gain the case study. The resource question to be studied and defined, informed by existing literature and previous research. Researchers should be clearly define the scope of the case, and they should be compile a list of evidence to be collected, as well as identity the nature of insight that the expect to gain from the case study. for the case study creation process. First one, the resource question to be studied is defined informed by the existing literature or in previous research. Second, resources should clearly define the scope of the case and they should compile. Once the case is identified, the research team is given access to the individual organization or situation being studied. Individuals are informed of risk associated with participation and must provide their consent, which may involve signing confidentiality or anonymity agreements. Researchers then collect evidence using the multiple methods, that is the qualitative and quantitative methods. In case of qualitative techniques, the interviews, focus groups, and direct observation. But in case of quantitative methods, surveys, questionnaires, data audits. The collection procedure need to be well defined to ensure relevance and accuracy of the evidence. The collected evidence is analyzed to come up with the insight. Each data source must be reviewed carefully by its and larger context of the case study so as to ensure continued relevance. At the same time, care must be taken not to force the analysis to feed potentially preconceived conclusion. At the same time, care must be taken not to force the analysis to fail. While the eventual case study may serve as the basis for the generalization, this generalization must be made cautiously to ensure the specific norms are at loss in the average. Finally, the case study is packed for the larger groups and publication. At this stage, some information may be withheld as in business case study to allow readers to draw their own conclusion. Finally, the case study is packed for larger groups and publication. At this stage, some information may withheld as in business case study to allow readers to draw their conclusion. In scientific fields, the completed case study need to be a coherent whole with the findings and statistical relationship clearly documented. In case of business study, some information may withheld. But in scientific field, the completed case study need to be a coherent whole with all findings and statistical relationship clearly documented. In case of business study, the withheld as in the business case study to allow readers to draw their conclusion, not conclusion from the researcher. Research question and case study, some difference. For example, research question, what are the ecological effects of wolf reintroduction? Case study of the wolf reintroduction in Yellowstone National Park. How populist politicians use the narrative about history to gain support. A case studies of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban and US President Donald Trump. How can teachers implement active learning strategies in mixed level classroom? Case study of the local alcohol that promotes active learning. What are the main advantages and disadvantages of wine farms for rural communities? Case studies of three rural wines farm development projects in the different parts of the country. Our viral marketing strategy is changing the relationship between companies and consumers. Case study of the iPhone X marketing campaign. How do experience of work in the gig economy differ by gender, race, and age. Case studies of Delhi, Barato, and over diverse in London. So research question and case study questions are different. Some advantage and disadvantage of case studies. One of the greatest advantage of the case study is that allows researcher to investigate things that are often difficult or impossible to replicate in a lab. Some other benefits of case study allows researcher to capture information on the how, what, and why of the something that's implemented. Give the researcher chance to collect information on why one strategy might be chosen over another. Permits the researcher to develop hypotheses that can be explored in experimental research. But in case of another hand, a case study have some drawbacks. It can necessarily generalize to a larger population. It cannot demonstrate cause and effect. It may not scientifically rigorous. It can lead to bias. Thanks for your patience. Thank you. See you again. Bye-bye.